Well, hello everybody. This is Dr. Stephen West, Superintendent of Winona Area Public School, and we're back again for Making the Grade. I have two relatively, well, I got one for sure, relatively new person here, and I got one that started at the start of the school year. But these are my two assistant principals. They're fantastic. I'm so proud of my hires. I get to say I hired you. I'll start over here with Ann Graner. She is the new middle school assistant principal, and what is it, about a month ago?
2 months almost.
Has it been
almost.
There you go, community. Look at that. 2 months ago. Okay, so about 2 months ago. I mean, we'll get to you in a second. And Jolene, Danka, you've been here since the start, and I hear nothing but amazing things for both of you guys. You guys are just doing a great job. But I wanted to get started because I think folks want to know what an assistant principal does. So let's talk about that. Okay, first of all, before we even get to that, Jolene, let's talk about where were you at before?
I was a middle school teacher in Stewartville, Minnesota for a majority of my teaching career, and also Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. And then assistant principal at Toma Middle School, and also a little assistant principal work at Red Wing at an elementary school.
At an elementary. So you were at a middle school recently, and then before that you were a little bit at an elementary.
For a year, and then my teaching experience is at the middle school level.
How big was the middle school?
Middle school in Sauk Rapids, about 300 kids per class, and Stewartville runs about 200.
200, okay. And with you, Ann, where were you at before?
I was in Bloomington and have spent my whole career in the middle school.
Okay.
So started out as an 8th grade math teacher and did that for quite some time.
I won't hold that against you.
Yeah, I know.
Dear God in heaven, okay.
And then spent close to 3 years as a dean of students.
As a dean of students.
In the middle school.
And most times folks don't know you leave the classroom to become a dean of students, and that's kind of you or my, I used to call you my little flunky kind of people because you did all the dirty work.
Yeah,
and then,
yes, you do.
And then we promote you to the assistant principal and then move on up to principal. So this has been the track that you wanted to take.
The progression, yep.
All right, so ladies, so here you are in Winona Area Public Schools. You're the assistant principal at the high school, my assistant principal at the middle school. What does an assistant principal do? I know, because I was one, but let's talk with you, Jolene. What do you do?
Every day is different, which I love, is the role of an assistant principal. But say a majority of my days are spent with kids, whether it be building those relationships with kids or the behavior piece of it does come into that, but it's more than that. It's not just the behaviors, it's also just relationships with the kids, talking about, attendance comes into play a little bit with that. Being visible a lot is that role of an assistant principal, whether it be, with the students or out amongst when, during lunchtime out is a big thing to be out there, and as well as working with staff when some of those behavior issues come in. And I know I'm missing things, but it depends on the given day at times.
You never know.
How about you, Ann? Same?
Yeah, a lot of the same things. And then when it's not kid stuff, then it's staff stuff, and you're working with staff on various issues, whether it's kids or you're doing staff evaluations in the classroom and helping them with their teaching and their practices and their techniques. So
excellent. So, I was an assistant principal. I was just joking. I was an assistant principal, and somebody once told me that if you do your job well, you will burn yourself out within a few years because there's a lot to it. So let's talk about how you cope with stress.
Yeah.
How do you cope with it? I mean, what do you do? Do you find time somewhere?
Absolutely. Any job has its stresses.
Right.
But as an assistant principal, you're on when you start, and you could go all night if you really wanted to.
Right.
So I think for me, it's important to just take some time later in the night and do some physical activity, do whatever, just my me time to just get away from it all. And then I'm really good at making lists at night and keeping organized for the next day, and that helps my stress level a lot as well.
That brings you down a little bit. How about you, Jolene?
That's funny. I make the list, but I make the list before I go home because then I try to leave it there, but I was adding things last night later because you do that. I'm definitely an active person. I hit the bluffs of Winona. I live right between two of them, and whether I'm with my kids or not, my kids are a part of that release, and also the physical stuff, because it lets you burn off some of those stressors. And you have to be on, like Ann said, it's on from the minute you walk in, and it's on through, I mean, it's the whole day. And so it's really nice to feel like you can be off, like just kind of shut off.
Down. Yeah. It's nice to get away from a lot of that and just, take to your family or do whatever exercises you like. Clearly, I'm not exercising as much as I need to, but it is vitally important that you're mentally healthy and physically okay, because it is a very stressful job. You take a lot of arrows, as people say, and you're trying to handle it. So as an assistant principal, philosophically, and this is just my own thought, a lot of discipline comes through you, to you ladies. Do you both have a philosophy around discipline? Do you kind of wing it? You better not say yes, but talk to me about philosophy of discipline.
I think you walk that balance and that fine line, and I don't know how you feel, but I think that it's important to have a consequence for a student's behavior, but at the same time, that's not everything to me. In fact, that's just a small part of it. The other part of it is, what's going on? Something's going on. So there's a reason that you did this, and how can I help you, and how can we support you, and what can we put in place so that you're successful? Rather than just that small consequence part is a very small part of what I do.
Yeah, absolutely.
My big thing is own the behavior. I'm a firm believer, honestly, as adults or kids, but a lot of times dealing with kids in this role, it's own it. I mean, realize it. We make mistakes, own it, and then how can we avoid making that mistake again? It's a teachable moment for me more than it is, like you said, about the consequence. There can be consequences, but again, it's the own it, and then it's the admit it, and a lot of times with me, depending on the behavior, it's parent involvement with that. I definitely want, and it's the child getting the parent involved with it, depending on the behavior, because I want them, again, to own it with them. And I think there's that realization, if they come in and say, you know what I did, I may, but I want you to tell me. I want you to own that behavior and how we're going to move forward.
Absolutely.
So.
All right, so we've talked about kids, and one of the reasons I was happy with both of you is because you always talked about children. And how do we change behaviors? Because that's the end game for us. It's not, we are the people that crack the whip of the buildings and try to keep the discipline clean. But in the end, it's about trying to change kids' behavior. And so I'm very, very pleased with both of you and how you are working with children. So both of you talk about it. So here we are in a school, at a high school of 1,000 kids, approximately, a middle school of approximately 1,000 kids. What are the main challenges going on in each of the schools? What's going on out there? Because, I hear everybody talk about, we got a lot of bullying going on, cyberbullying and fights and gangs. And what do you see as the main challenges in schools today, in our schools, but in general in education? What are some of the challenges you see?
I can go. I think a huge challenge at the high school has been, the consistency and the expectations for kids. We need to be across the board, and that's why, now Ann's new, I'm new, her and I working together to what do we want? We don't want that. We want to transition to be pretty smooth between the middle school and high school. So a big thing is, kids can come there and come from the middle school and say, but we could do that there, or things like that. And I'm not saying, developmentally that's okay at times, but really the consistency, but then the consistency across the building. We can only do so much. A huge challenge, I believe, at the high school is having everyone involved with that. Everyone on the same page, expecting the same things of kids, so that kids aren't questioning why I'm making the decision I am when they walk by and do the same behavior in someone else's. So I'm one of the bigger challenges at the high school, I believe.
And just to piggyback off that, not only deciding what our expectations are, but making sure that we teach the kids those expectations.
Absolutely.
And teach them that character building and that sort of thing, I think is important too.
Okay, and maybe this, I'm about to kind of take a duck walk, so maybe this doesn't happen to you, but it happened to me a lot as an assistant principal, and that was trying to find the balance between working with children and yet supporting staff. Maybe that doesn't happen to you. It probably does. So let's talk about that. How do you balance that? Because that's the complicated piece, because sometimes I know staff want a pound of flesh, and I'll use that term, whereas you are trying to educate the kid. And sometimes those two don't kind of mesh. How do we balance that? How do you reconcile that kind of piece?
I think what I always do is communication.
Okay.
Communication and relationships are my job. And I will even add on their parents and just balancing all three of those things, the need of the kid and the parent and wanting to support your staff, and just communicating with all three and developing those relationships. And even when I'm working with a kid, I'll go to the teacher, what do you think? And we'll talk it out before I talk to the kid.
Okay.
So it's that healthy balance of learning the behaviors that could be dealt with in the classroom, and then when they come to the office, really that, again, building the relationships with staff, and then that trust level of it has been dealt with, it came to me, and that line of certain things, maybe we don't communicate back, certain things we do, but please trust that I'm taking care of it, and I want the child back in your classroom because that's where they need to be. So it's that fine line, but I think once you establish yourself and establish what your goals and expectations are, people will understand your methods and how you're always working for the child.
Absolutely.
So as assistant principals, what does the phrase instructional leader mean to you, to either one of you? When you hear that phrase, when Dr. West says, Jolene, you are an instructional leader and you are an instructional leader, what does that mean to you when you hear that phrase?
I'm going.
I don't want it.
For me, it means that I am putting into place I'm supporting teachers to put instructional methods in place in their classrooms, and even maybe programs within our building, instructional programs, whether that be AVID or whatever that may be. I am putting the best possible instructional practices in my building. And helping the teachers to do that in their classrooms, and making sure that the curriculum is appropriate and whatnot.
Jolene?
Agree with that completely. Those are the sorts of things that I believe an instructional leader is, and I believe with instruction there also is that classroom management piece that I believe that's still a part of that instructional leadership, because without that, the core instruction we want to have into place kind of gets lost if we don't have that framework in place. So I believe that's a part of that component that comes into that.
So I know we're winding down this segment, but I want to go back to that previous question of instructional leader, because the question I have is, so each one of you gave me a definition of instructional leadership, and yet you are my disciplinarians, you are the ones that bring a pound of flesh, you are that person. So how do you reconcile that as leaders of the building? How do you find the time to make sure that you're in the classrooms evaluating teachers? Are you programming, sitting with the principals, the site principals, making sure that the educational program, how do you balance that during the school day? Because quite frankly, we could end up taking a lot of time talking about discipline and making sure that the culture of the building is running properly, but you are instructional leaders as the principal of the sites are. So how do you work through that and balance that time?
Honestly, with all of my evaluations, I plan way ahead of time, just so people are aware in the office where I'm going to be, communicate, is someone else available to do the discipline piece, because I value that part, and I want them to know I value coming into their classroom. Unless it's this huge urgent issue, I just make sure it's planned and I attend to it, and then I make sure I put in my calendar and give them the proper time for that post-observation piece as well. So.
You have to carve out the time.
Absolutely.
And you just have to do it. You know, for an hour today, I'm going in classrooms, and unless something really big is happening, that's where I'm going to be, because that's necessary as well.
So just making sure you're intentional and prioritizing, and I have to tell you, as I end this segment with you, I've gotten a chance to. I hear from staff about each one of you. I haven't been in the buildings as much. I got a lot of things going on here, but
Got to carve out the time.
I got to be. Oh, you're being funny now. Oh, okay, you're being funny though. Okay, you're right. Carve out the time and being more intentional. But what I do hear and what I do appreciate is this focus that I have a focus on, and so that alignment about children. We don't ever deviate from children. And that's what I'm most proud of with both of you, is to enter the organization and say, I believe in the focus on kids. And so I can't thank you enough for that vision. We'll figure out the rest of it. But if we lose sight of why we come to work, and we worry about other types of things, and don't focus on kids, then we're in the wrong business. And so I want to commend both of you for that.
Go beyond entertainment with HBC GigaWorld and get the broadband experience. Video chat without buffering. Stream your favorite shows and movies with TV to go. Dominate your online games and more with gigabit internet speeds. Watch over 300 video channels, including high definition, sports, HBO, Cinemax Stars Plus, Encore Showtime, and more. Call friends and family with reliable, crystal clear, unlimited local and domestic long distance phone service. Experience broadband the way it's meant to be with HBC GigaWorld. Visit hbci.com to get started today.
To my very left, I want everybody to introduce themselves, and then I want you to tell me what you do, because last time she just mentioned her name. I want to hear what you do. So, Amber, we'll start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself to our community here?
I'm Amber Mlynczak, and I will be the AVID elective teacher next year.
I'm Mark Anderson, principal at Winona Middle School.
And I'm Kerry, Randall. I'm a school counselor, but also AVID coordinator.
Let's talk about that. Why did you participate?
I would love to answer that.
Okay.
As a school counselor, I am always interested in helping motivate students to do better. We talk a lot about organizational needs. And so anytime that I can improve my skill set to help students with motivation, with learning new strategies, with kind of reaching their potential, I'm all for it. Excellent. So. And that's what AVID appears to be.
Right. Yeah. Mark, why did you want to decide that AVID was important to the building?
Well, one of the things we have in the conversation, especially has come out in our interviews, our kids want this. What we're hearing when they're being interviewed is kids want the support. They're telling us they're not sure how to be a student. Right. And we've struggled with this group of kids, the middle. Right. And we've done all kinds of things. We've tried Connect. We've tried certain things in Connect. We've tried little types of programming, and this opportunity when you brought it to us this summer, looking at how to teach kids to be students and how to organize yourselves. These are the skills that kids don't have, and year to year the same kids were having the same problems.
Absolutely. Amber, any thoughts on that?
I just think we have so many kids who we could give some extra support to, and some kids who I think really know that they might not be working to their utmost potential, and they just need some help with that. Absolutely. And this would be a way of giving them some of that extra support.
So we did go out to San Diego to decide if it was the middle school staff, it was the high school staff, it was the superintendent. To go out to San Diego to decide if it was something that we thought fit us as a system. What did you learn out there in San Diego where all the folks around the world came together to talk about AVID, to drink the Kool-Aid? What did you learn out there?
I think we got to, one of the big pieces that I came away from that with is that there are a whole bunch of different ways to implement this school-wide. And eventually when we get to that point in the process when we can have the strategies for kids school-wide, I think all kids are going to benefit. At this point, we're starting small because that would be a big venture to do in 1 year, but starting small and getting it out to those students and having them be able to participate in this. I think the biggest piece for me is we got to see kids who had been involved. Absolutely. And we got to see students who had been involved in the process and the programming, and we got to hear firsthand from them that it had made them a more successful person.
Absolutely. Mark?
I think what we're hearing out there is, especially from the students, it changed their world. It changed what their expectations of not only middle school, but what high school was for them. Right. And hearing from staff about how it changed their building. That these kids became leaders, that other kids wanted in this program. This became the thing to be. Right, right.
I loved the introduction of how many students went on to colleges and how many scholarships they achieved, and how good community citizens, have been made and developed out of this program. It's many, many thousands, million, right?
Millions,
so it's hard to not buy into it when you have that tried and true program that's been around for a long time. 35 years. Yeah, yeah. So we're late getting on the bus. Yeah, yeah. But that's okay because there's proof that it works in many other places. So why not here?
That's right. I agree with you. So let's talk about, because I'm being presumptuous to the community about it, even if they know what AVID is, what's the acronym, what does it mean, what group of kids are we impacting here? We're talking about kids. So one of you want to talk about AVID and what this all means and what we're trying to do? Oh, don't be looking at him.
Let me start then. I'll start.
Okay.
AVID is the Advancement via Individual Determination, which
really puts potential and growth in everybody's hands to say, you will be given the tools to perform to your utmost. And it is growth mindset. It isn't about, hey, you started out at this level, that's where you're going to stay. This is about everybody has potential. And we will give you the tools and strategies and the belief system and the philosophy of a program to meet your needs and reach your goals, not somebody else's, but what's your potential. So it's an empowerment philosophy, which also is good for us as adults and as teachers, because we also need to be growth-minded.
Absolutely.
And that's, to me, what it's really about. It's a systemic change in how we teach and what we do with those life skills, those soft skills that students need to achieve and
what we
fulfill
hear
their dreams.
and what we hear from the community saying they want those skills still taught to our kids. Those soft skills are important as we move to more technology, and you know, those soft skills are vitally important. What type of kid is it? I mean, so we got the AVID, we know what it is about, but what is the kid?
So I think we're going to target kind of that middle of the road kid. And we offer a lot of things for our kids who fall into a low academic area or a high academic area, but I think that middle of the road kid who just needs some extra support to be as successful as they possibly can be, we kind of miss them sometimes. And so we're looking at that kid who falls kind of in that middle ground where they probably are doing a lot of things to be successful, but they could do so much more. And we're trying to get them to that utmost potential and meet their highest potential. And we're trying to find ways where, through the AVID program, the AVID gives you a ton of ways and strategies where you can help those students to achieve the most they can. And I kind of, I think we kind of also target kids who are in some underrepresented groups, and we talk about kids who maybe can kind of fly under the radar, and we don't get too concerned about them sometimes, but there are some things that we need to maybe pull out of them and find the best for them.
Absolutely, and they are at risk. I mean, that's it.
Yep.
Mark, you have anything you want to say to it?
And the biggest piece there is one of the biggest deals for these kids is after we choose who they are, after they've gone through being interviewed and being selected to be in the program, a kid who's never taken an honors program has to take one. So they're going to really get to understand what it means to be in a rigorous curriculum. And hopefully, as they move forward from 7th to 8th grade, it won't be one honors class. Hopefully, they'll start taking two. When they move to the high school, they'll start looking at what a concurrent enrollment might be, what a AP course might be, and additional honors courses there also.
Yeah, that's an important piece to this, is that no, it's not just simply saying we're going to try to organize you and get you set up, but we're going to teach you pacing. We're going to make sure that you're ready, so when you get to high school, when you get to that next level, that you're ready to take these college courses and be ready to roll on. So, there was an AVID presentation with families. I happened to be there, and you folks were all there with your AVID stuff on. By the way, I should have worn my AVID gear. Sorry. I should have worn my AVID gear now, but I'm so proud to see you in your AVID stuff. How was that received? What'd you sense?
We had 45 to 50 parents there that night who brought their kids. It was amazing. The parents that were there asked amazing questions, asked why, they asked what my kid has to give up to be in it. Some things that we've been doing here recently during spring break, it looks like those kids are going to give up a little less than we had anticipated. A lot of parents had sent me emails or have seen me in the community or in school, have said, for the first time, my son or my daughter is being looked at. They're not in special ed, or they're not in a lower program. They're not a gifted, talented kid, but my kid is special now. My kid has a belief that someone really is looking out for him or her, and that's a big deal. When you have a parent say, finally, my kid who's always been under the radar is on the radar and is being seen as someone who can be special.
Right. So let's talk about the structure for AVID. It's not on the sheet, so we just talk. So what is the structure? How are we having it set up next year? I know it's starting in 7th grade. What does that look like for a kid? Anybody can talk about it.
So we're going to have our core teachers, a core teacher in every subject area, so math and science, social studies, and language arts will each have AVID training. So there will be a core teacher, and then I will be doing our AVID elective course. So each student will take their core classes just like every student. So every student will be involved in core classes. But those particular core classes, those teachers will be trained specifically in some AVID strategies. So those kids will be exposed to those same AVID strategies throughout their classes, which we're hoping then that helps with the organizational piece and making sure they're on the same page with everything. The AVID elective course is an additional course that they'll take as one of their classes, and they'll take it every day, just like any other course.
Right.
But that's where we get to kind of go a little further, more in depth in some of those areas of organization and collaboration and working in groups to help those kids find those successes in their academic areas.
So it's a weekly schedule, I assume, that you'll be doing a Monday through Friday type of thing.
Correct.
And can you talk a little bit about what goes on in that class usually on Monday through Friday?
So
In your class?
we haven't exactly
laid it out.
laid
yet.
everything out, but there will be.
I like how
sure.
you just did that, by the way. That was pretty good. But but give me an idea of what kids would be doing in your.
So there's 2 days that will be specifically, we are going to look at tutorials. And tutorials will be small groups of students working with a college tutor or an adult tutor who will be helping students with specific issues that they're having as far as difficulty in their classroom. So if it's in a math classroom or a language arts classroom, they'll be working on specific help in those areas. And the tutorials are designed to be student-led, where the adult is kind of the kind of advisor, overseer, kind of facilitator more so than the teacher. The students get to take that role, and they get to be in charge.
Right.
So that's 2 of the days where they're going to work in those small groups. One of the days we're going to be doing a lot of making sure they're organized and binder checks. They'll have a big binder where they keep everything, and it's an organization piece. Yeah, definitely. And then 1 day a week will be more of our kind of almost like community building within with our kids and making sure we're kind of all on the same page. We're hoping to bring, community members in and things like that, where they get to be exposed to maybe opportunities that they will have outside of school someday. In the future, maybe that could be different jobs they could be exposed to, college things they could be exposed to, whether it's a college coming in to speak or us going and visiting. It's a day to kind of look at some of those opportunities down the road.
I hear, I'm gonna come to you, Kerry, about counseling in a second, but I hear this thing going on out there about, not everybody's geared for a 4-year school. I hear that language a lot, and I cringe every time I hear it. I'm not suggesting that every kid's prepared for a 4-year experience at Winona State or the U, but I think what it does do is give a kid choice to say, maybe I need to go to a trade. Maybe I do need to go to a 4-year experience. And we should get away from talking like that some kids just don't need 4-year schools or college, or they should just go right to the workforce. And I'm not sure I believe that. And that's why AVID's important to me, because I want a kid to have a choice to decide. I want a kid to have the choice. So I got about 2 minutes, and I want to come to you about counseling. What role does the counselor play in AVID?
Well, as the coordinator, I think my role will be participating in the family component, helping parents kind of be empowered to be a part of this. They're unsure, as we are at this point, of just embarking on this, to help them know that they're part of the team, and to help provide information so that they know how to support and how to better understand where their students going, because that can be kind of a risky thing for them too. They're unsure of this territory also. And I also think it's helping with the attitude component and the motivation part, helping students to not have the mentality that they have that fixed mindset again of, this is what my dad did, so that's what I'll probably do, and that's what I can expect, to you have any potential opportunity that any other student does. And that's really, I think, the biggest piece. We want to get this achievement gap addressed.
That's right.
And we want doors to be open for students that are interested in opening them, and just to help them become aware of even what their options are. College preparation is a huge component of what school counselors are about, as well as academic. But I do feel like the just letting them know the trade schools, the community colleges, the certifications, there's just so many options, and they continue to grow.
Thank you so very much. And I'll just close by saying, with all of the things going on, people saying things about Avid, I so appreciate you being there, being committed to this wonderful, wonderful opportunity for our children. I can't thank you enough for that. So all of you, thank you, and the whole team. That ends our segment here for Making the Grade. We'll see you back here next time. I got a great team here. Looking forward for you to pay attention to Avid here. Well done. Have a great day.